Welcome to another episode of 180 Podcast, brought to you by Workforce 180, the nation's #1 training and consulting organization, where everything we do is in workforce language and specifically for workforce professionals. Today, I'll be your host, Doug Foresta, Director of Podcast Services at Workforce 180, and joining me is Sari Wienerman, Director of Content Marketing at Workforce 180. Enjoy the episode. This is Doug Foresta, and with me today, back with me is Sari Wienerman, the Director of Content Marketing for Workforce 180, and we're going to be talking about what makes a good worker. So, Sari, thanks for joining me again.
Excited to be back, Doug.
Thanks. So, all right, so let's talk about this. So today we've talked about, what is work, right? We've had this conversation about what is work, and but today we're looking at it from the side of the worker, right? And what are the qualities that would constitute a successful worker? And we were saying that some things might be universal and others might be more specific to what you're doing, right?
Yeah, there's definitely two different sort of spectrums of qualities that make a successful worker. And one of them would be sort of this universal thing of, the attributes that you have as applied to work. And then the other ones are very specific to the actual task at hand.
So I'll share with you some that I think I can't imagine how you could be a good worker without them. So one would be having a good work ethic, right? Mm-hmm. Taking pride in what you do, being reliable, showing up when you say you're going to show up. Those right off the top of my head kind of jump out as, I don't care what you're doing, right? You don't want an unreliable surgeon.
Oh, no.
And even in the arts, right? You don't want an unreliable actor who doesn't show up to set.
Absolutely. At first I was like very much top of mind. Oh, being a team player, having the ability to collaborate. At first I'm thinking there's really nothing I can think about that doesn't involve that. Any type of work that you're going to do is really going to need some sort of collaboration, which comes back to this idea of what work is. And I think we sort of touched on this last time, but the idea that it is carrying out tasks specific to creating a desired result that sort of is beneficial to more than one person, right? It's beneficial to others. And I'm trying to think, is there something you can think about where maybe being more individualized and centered in your own work would be the benefit, or is collaboration really a universal thing too?
Right. I think maybe in some jobs it's more essential than others, right? If you are a basketball player, you absolutely need to be able to collaborate and to, work with a team. But maybe if you're a boxer, that might be more of a lone pursuit, right? You're alone in the ring. It's your team's behind you, but ultimately it's you. So, I mean, I can't imagine not being able to work well with others.
Right, because even that boxer, they've got their coach. They have, they have some sort of team going along the ride with them. This ability to connect, I guess, is definitely an essential thing and universal.
One thing, this is just my own experience, but I think that it's important to know your strengths and weaknesses as a worker, and to make sure to put yourself into work that really, for the most part, plays up to your strengths. And we really do have preferences and strengths, and to realize that you're not necessarily going to just be a good worker in general. So if you go on an interview and people say, well, why are you interested in this job? And you just say, well, generally I'm a good worker. I could do anything. That's going to come off to the employer as that you don't really know yourself, because we can't do everything equally well. We're not that, we have to know. In fact, I think that's part of what makes a great team is that you have people with different strengths and people know what their strengths are.
I completely agree. I think having that ability to be very specific about the things that you prefer and the things that you are really good at is definitely so helpful. And I'm thinking back to that really common interview question of what are your strengths and then what are your weaknesses? And it's sort of this thing that you always know, well, you should never say that you don't have any weaknesses, and you should make sure you've got something to highlight. But it really is actually important for you to know that, and for you to be able to kind of have an appreciation for maybe what those weaknesses are so that you can grow into them. And, those are the opportunities for you to really learn through the job. And then at the same time, you need to know what are those things that you are really good at that you can apply to it and excel. And even specifically in this scenario, if you're answering that question in an interview, the more specific you can be, the better. Because even if you do just say, I'm really punctual and I show up and, well, a lot of people have that, right? Because we just discussed that as one of those like really essential things. So
Right.
what can you do to make sure that you're really in tune with those very specific qualities that make up, your success as a worker?
When I think of strengths, I think about what are you good at? Some people are really good. They have really good people skills. They're really good with people. And by the way, you could be good with multiples of these, but I just think about these are some of the strengths. Like I know people who are just very, very good with people, right? They're very, very in tune with them, have a service orientation. They're just really, really good at that.
They want to work with other people. They want to talk to other people. They want to have, conversations and be challenged and learn from other people. I think, as a person, we all have to be good with other people in some way, but there are definitely people who like it, who really like get excited by that idea. And then there's some who are like, if I don't have to call anybody today, that'd be great.
And then there are people who are really good with things. Like they're really good with their hands. They can work on your car or, they're very handy. I am not one of those people. I would never take a job like, repairing cars or, building things. That is not my strength. But there are people who are, and that is a really important strength that we need.
Something else I'm thinking of is people who are really good at creating, at thinking outside of the box, at challenging what's in front of them. And in some cases, like we absolutely need that. We need that to move forward. We need innovators and creative thinkers. And then for some jobs, you do need the people that are actually really just oriented to, following the structure, being able to, have a set of rules and know how to execute based on those rules rather than reinventing the box every time. And for that, both are strengths, both could also be kind of weaknesses, but it would depend each time on what the task is, what the job is, what the work is that they need to get done.
You need innovators. And we, by the way, we can all innovate in whatever degree that we have, but in terms of what is your natural tendency, are you more of an innovator or are you more of an executor? And both, like you said, you need both in organizations. If you're thinking about as a worker, okay, will I be good at this? If it's a position that requires you to innovate a lot and you know that your real joy comes from executing, not really from the innovating, is that going to be a good match for you?
Right. And I think that's a really good thing to point out is that we all have a little bit of both. And it's great to be able to embrace both sides, both the innovator and the executor. But when you get down to it, it is that thing of like, which one really sparks joy for you? Which one is exciting to you? Because that exciting thing is probably going to be the thing that you're going to be drawn to and honestly be better at because you enjoy it.
So I think what we're coming to is that, well, there are some universal strength. There are some universal things that make a good worker. Goodness is also there's this idea of the term that I've heard is goodness of fit. That you have to know, is this going to be a fit for what I'm good at?
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah.
The other one that we're talking about. So I think, being good with people, being good with things, and that's idea of, being good with ideas, right? And those are the people that, we think about maybe innovation as that. But, really, I mean, innovation could be innovation in people. It could be innovation. I mean, there are people who are so innovative in creating, building homes and things like that. So I don't think innovation only has to do with ideas.
Sure. I mean, that innovator has to be able to tap into the execution part in order to make this idea a reality. It may get passed on to somebody else who takes over the execution part, but in order to keep this idea you might have grounded in reality, let's say it is for building a home, you could have this really great idea, but if it's not going to be structurally sound, you can't carry through with it, right? So you have to have a little bit of that execution minded brain, but then you can pass it along to that person on your team that is the expert execution person and then they help to materialize it.
And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, so another piece that I would add to is it's somebody who has a decent amount of self-knowledge and self-reflection. Somebody that kind of knows themselves. They know their
Yeah,
strengths and weaknesses.
absolutely. I agree. I think that's something that we may not, specifically think about offhand, but it is so important. And I'm thinking about, like what are the things we can do to make sure that we are being introspective in that way and, sort of self-evaluating from time to time. What would you say? What are things that maybe you do, or are there things that you notice in your life where, you're sort of taking stock of those things? How does that come about for you? Is it validation from other people? Is it, comments from other people that sort of make you realize it? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, in my life, it's been a combination of things. I mean, you can take inventories. There are professional inventories that you can take that will help you. Strengths finder type things that help
Yeah,
you
skills
identify your strengths.
inventories. Yeah.
Yeah, skills inventory. So there are formal things that you can do, and certainly work with. Like with I mean, that's one of the things that the job centers across the country that we work with
Yeah,
help, right? All
absolutely.
yeah, the job coaches help people with that. And then I also think that it's really, I think it's really important for people to start working as soon as they can, and to actually do job, to work and get into
Yes.
jobs so you can learn what you
Yes.
like to do.
I agree. I think, yes, just getting to work and embracing diversified jobs, embracing the idea that like you are going to gain this insight into yourself as a worker with every different job that you have. And so even, being excited and not really limited by the idea that, well, maybe you'd start here, but it wouldn't necessarily be, the next step to getting this desired result. I really like the idea that we're not necessarily like climbing up a ladder with our work experience. We're just sort of like collecting data from all different aspects so that we're really the sum of everything that we've done, rather than it being this like very scripted plan that you have to do in order to land upon the career that you're going to end up with.
So yeah, I think we're saying to people, like, take some skills tests, go out and work, notice. I mean, just noticing and reflecting and realizing that you really can't be everything. There's no one person. Maybe Da Vinci. Da Vinci might have been that one person, who could do everything, right? Leonardo da Vinci seemed like he could do everything in the world, but
Right.
even Da Vinci, I'm sure, had his strengths and weaknesses. And so, really thinking about and understanding who are you as a worker is going to help you so much when you, just in terms of what you apply for in the first place, or what positions you put yourself in. So Sarah, to be continued, but I really like this conversation about, what makes you a good worker. And I think hopefully we've shared some things for people to think about. And like I said, I think about from my own experience, even the things that didn't work out were so valuable to me because they taught me, they led me towards what would work out.
Absolutely. And that's a really powerful way to just look at all of the experiences that you have. And, to be able to approach all of these things with excitement, because that at the end of it, it's going to give you information. It's going to give you that ability to self-reflect, and it's going to give you just another, stepping stone for what could be next.
Well said. Thanks so much, Sarah. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Doug.
You've been listening to an episode of 180 Podcast, brought to you by Workforce 180. If you're interested in starting your own podcast or would like to learn more about other services, email us at podcast@workforce180.com, and we would be happy to schedule a call with you. Remember to subscribe to the podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.